He laughed and said, "You can stay if you want." She actually did. Ren Takeda had long ago stopped counting days. On Ilara 9, the concept held little meaning. 26 hours of dim, reddish light followed by 9 hours of absolute darkness. The rhythm was all that mattered, not arbitrary numbers assigned to essentially identical cycles. His research station, perched on a rocky outcropping overlooking a vast methane lake, had been his solitary home for 3 standard Earth years. Status report complete. All systems nominal, he muttered to himself, a habit formed from prolonged isolation. The xenobiological samples he'd collected were thriving in the station's specialized containment units. Tiny luminescent organisms reminiscent of Earth's deep-sea creatures but entirely alien in their genetic makeup. A notification blinked on his console. Unusual, given that supply drops came quarterly, and the next wasn't due for 28 cycles. Incoming vessel detected. Identification: Carillion Science Consortium. Estimated arrival 43 minutes. Ren's heart rate spiked. The Carillions were known throughout the Galactic Alliance as brilliant researchers, but notoriously difficult to work with. Their rigid adherence to protocol and literal interpretation of language made casual human conversation nearly impossible. "Computer, why wasn't I informed of this visit?" he demanded, rushing to make himself presentable. 3 years of talking to no one but himself had left his social skills rusty at best. Notification sent 82 days ago. You acknowledged receipt. Ren vaguely remembered skimming something about potential collaborative research, but he'd assumed it would involve remote data sharing, not an actual visit. He hastily cleared empty nutrient packets from the common area and ran a hand through his unkempt dark hair. The landing pad vibrated as the sleek silver vessel touched down. Through the reinforced viewport, Ren watched the airlock cycle, equalizing pressure and atmosphere composition. When the door finally slid open, he wasn't prepared for what emerged. The Carillion stood slightly taller than him, with skin the color of Earth's summer sky. Her features were humanoid enough to read expressions, with large iridescent eyes that shifted between purple and indigo. Silver markings traced patterns across her forehead and cheekbones, glimmering in the artificial light. "I am Nylira, Xenolinguistic Specialist, 7th Classification," she announced, her voice melodic but precise. "You are researcher Takeda Ren?" He nodded, suddenly aware of his disheveled appearance. "Just Ren is fine." Her head tilted slightly. "Just Ren? An unusual designation?" "No, I mean," he sighed. "Ren, my name is Ren." "Understood, Ren." She stepped fully into the station, carrying only a small metallic case. "I have been assigned to study human communicative patterns in isolated environments. You are an ideal subject." His brow furrowed. "I wasn't informed that I would be the subject of research." "Your superiors approved the arrangement. I will observe and document your linguistic habits for 1 standard quarter cycle." Her eyes scanned the station methodically. "Where shall I establish my workspace?" Ren felt a pang of territorial annoyance. His carefully constructed solitude was being invaded, and apparently, he had inadvertently agreed to it. "There's a secondary lab down the east corridor," he said stiffly. "It's not much, but it has a sleeping compartment attached." Nylira nodded. "It will suffice. I require minimal accommodations." She studied his face with unnerving intensity. "Your micro-expressions indicate displeasure. Have I violated a social protocol?" "No, I just—" Ren hesitated. "I've been alone for a long time." "This is unexpected. I understand isolation effects on human psychology." Her voice softened almost imperceptibly. "I will endeavor to minimize disruption to your routines." As she moved past him toward the corridor, Ren caught a subtle scent like ozone after rain. For the first time in 3 years, his station felt different, alive with something other than his own breathing and the constant hum of machinery. Whether he liked it or not, his solitude had been interrupted. 14 days into Nylira's stay, and Ren still found himself startled by her presence. He'd round a corner to find her observing the methane lake through the viewport, or discover her meticulously documenting his coffee-making ritual. Her constant note-taking initially made him self-conscious, but gradually became part of the station's ambient noise, like the hum of the air recyclers or the periodic pings from the monitoring systems. "Your species consumes this stimulant daily," Nylira observed one morning, watching as Ren measured coffee grounds. Despite documented negative effects on sleep patterns, Some traditions survive despite logic, he replied, sliding a mug toward her. Want to try? She hesitated before accepting the steaming cup. Her fingers, 5 of them just like his, brushed against his briefly. The contact sent an unexpected warmth up his arm. The sensation is complex, she said after taking a careful sip. Her blue skin flushed slightly purpler around her cheekbones, bitter yet somehow satisfying. That pretty much sums up most worthwhile things in human experience, Ren laughed, surprising himself with the sound. When had he last genuinely laughed? Later that day, they made a breakthrough in their shared research. Ren's xenobiological samples responded to sonic patterns in Karelian speech, creating synchronized bioluminescent displays that matched Nylira's voice modulations. This is unprecedented, Ren exclaimed, watching the tiny organisms pulse with light as she spoke. They're interpreting your language patterns as mating signals. Nylira's eyes shifted to a deeper violet. Excitement, Ren had learned. Perhaps there is evolutionary convergence between Karelian vocal patterns and the vibration frequencies of their native environment. In his enthusiasm, Ren grabbed her hands. We need to document this immediately. This could revolutionize cross-species communication theory. Instead of pulling away, Nylira intertwined her fingers with his. Your body temperature increases with excitement, she observed, but didn't release his hands. They worked through the night, recording data and formulating theories. Ren felt more intellectually alive than he had in years. Around midnight, the station's alert system interrupted their work. Warning Category 5 atmospheric disturbance approaching. Estimated arrival 6 hours. Duration approximately 72 hours. Recommended protocol full lockdown. The methane storms here can get intense, Ren explained, already moving to secure their research samples. We'll need to power down non-essential systems and move to the central hub. Nylira efficiently assisted with preparations, her movements precise and measured. As they finished securing the station, the first vibrations of the approaching storm rattled the structure. Outside, the sky had turned an ominous copper color. I should return to my quarters to secure my personal research, Nylira said, moving toward the corridor. The east wing might lose pressure during peak storm intensity, Ren said, the words tumbling out before he could consider them. You can stay in the central hub if you want. She tilted her head, the silver markings on her face catching the emergency lights. Then I will, she replied simply. The simplicity of her acceptance left Ren momentarily speechless. He nodded, suddenly aware that the station would feel very small for the next 3 days. By the second day of the storm, the station groaned under the assault of methane winds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour. Ren and Nylira had established an unexpected comfortable routine in the confined space of the central hub, which consisted of the main control room, a small galley, and Ren's personal quarters. On my world, storms are celebrated, Nylira said as they shared a meal of reconstituted protein cubes. They bring vital nutrients to our crystalline forests. On Earth, at least where I grew up in Kyoto, typhoons meant huddling inside and hoping the power stayed on, Ren replied. He'd been surprised how easily conversation flowed between them now. My grandmother would tell ghost stories during the worst of it. Ghost stories? Nylira's eyes shifted to a curious pale lavender. Narratives about deceased consciousness remaining active? This is entertainment for human children, Ren laughed. Terrifying entertainment. But there's something about being safe while danger rages outside that makes fear. Enjoyable somehow. Fascinating. The simultaneous experience of contradictory emotions. She leaned closer. Would you share one of these narratives? As Ren recounted a particularly chilling Japanese folktale, the lights flickered and then died completely. Emergency red lighting bathed the room in an eerie glow. Power core rerouting. Backup systems engaged. The computer announced flatly. Estimated time to restoration. Unknown. Heat conservation protocol initiated. That's not good, Ren muttered, checking the environmental controls. Temperature will drop to conserve energy. We should grab the thermal blankets from storage. They worked in the dim light to create a makeshift nest of blankets near the auxiliary heating unit. As the temperature continued to fall, their breath began to form visible clouds. Your species is not adapted to cold, Nylira observed, noticing Ren's shivering. Karelians generate internal heat more efficiently. Lucky you, Ren said through chattering teeth. Without warning, Nylira moved closer and wrapped her arms around him. The sudden warmth emanating from her blue skin was startling. "This is not inappropriate?" she asked, her face inches from his. "I have studied human protocols about physical contact, but contextual applications remain unclear." No, Ren stammered, acutely aware of her closeness. "This is survival logistics. Your heartbeat has increased significantly," she observed. "Is this fear response?" "Not exactly," he admitted. They remained entangled as the storm howled. Gradually, Ren's shivers subsided, replaced by a different kind of trembling as Nylira's fingers traced curious patterns along his arm. "I have been studying you beyond linguistics," she confessed. "Your solitude puzzles me. Humans are social creatures, yet you chose extreme isolation." The darkness made honesty easier. "After my last expedition ended badly, colleagues injured because of my miscalculations, I couldn't face being responsible for anyone else." Her hand found his face in the dim light. "Responsibility implies connection. Is connection always a burden?" "Not always," Ren whispered. "Not right now." In the red-tinted darkness, with the storm raging outside, something shifted between them. A boundary crossed without words. Nylira's skin glowed faintly, an evolutionary trait Ren had only read about in xenobiology texts. "Your species bioluminesces when," he began. "When experiencing intense emotion," she finished, her voice barely audible above the storm. "Another data point for your research." "I don't want to study this," Ren said, trailing his fingers along the luminescent patterns appearing on her skin. "I just want to experience it." Their lips met hesitantly at first, an experiment in cross-species connection. Then with growing certainty as the storm outside matched the one building between them. Morning arrived without distinction on Alara 9, just a subtle lightening of the perpetual storm darkness. The power had returned sometime during the night, and with it, the steady hum of the station's systems. Ren woke to find Nylira studying him with scientific curiosity, her blue skin still faintly luminescent in places where his touch had lingered. "You speak differently in sleep," she observed, propped on one elbow. "Less structured. More honest." Ren felt vulnerable under her gaze. Last night had been unprecedented. The xenobiology textbook certainly hadn't covered this aspect of Corellian-human interaction. "What did I say?" he asked, suddenly concerned. "My translation matrix is uncertain." The emotional context overrode linguistic patterns. Her fingers traced the outline of his jaw. "But I believe the meaning was affection." Ren caught her hand and pressed it to his lips, an impulsive gesture that made her skin glow brighter. "Is this uncomfortable for you?" he asked. "This wasn't in your research parameters." Nylira's expression became thoughtful. "Corellians value knowledge above all else. This experience is new knowledge, of the most intimate kind." Their morning unfolded with a strange new awareness. Simple tasks, preparing food, checking station systems, became charged with meaning as they navigated the undefined territory between them. "The storm has damaged the eastern sensor array," Ren announced, reviewing the diagnostics. "We'll need to manually reset it once the winds die down." Nylira joined him at the console, her shoulder pressing against his. "The meteorological patterns indicate another 12 hours of severe conditions." 12 more hours confined together," Ren smiled. "I can think of worse scenarios." She studied him with those iridescent eyes. "You no longer resent my presence." "I never resented you," he corrected. "I resented change. I had convinced myself I needed solitude." "And now?" Before he could answer, alarms blared throughout the station. "Warning, containment breach in primary laboratory. Biohazard protocols engaged." Ren's heart plummeted. The specimens, if they escape into the station's atmosphere. They rushed to the lab, sealing themselves in protective gear from the emergency station. Inside they found chaos. The storm had caused a power surge that shattered 3 containment units. The bioluminescent organisms were spreading across surfaces, pulsing with aggressive red light. "They're in a defensive state," Ren explained, frantically preparing a neutralizing agent. "In nature, they'd only display these patterns when threatened by predators." Nylira moved with calculated precision, helping to isolate the contaminated areas. "They respond to Corellian vocal patterns. Perhaps I can calm them." Before Ren could protest, she began emitting a complex series of melodic tones, not quite singing, not quite speaking, while removing her breathing apparatus. "What are you doing?" Ren cried out. "They could be toxic." "Trust my knowledge as I have trusted yours," she replied, continuing the vocal sequence. Remarkably, the organism's pulsing slowed, their color shifting from angry red to a peaceful blue. They began gathering toward Nylira, drawn to her voice like moths to flame. Ren worked quickly, recapturing the specimens while they remained docile. When the last one was secured, he turned to find Nylira swaying slightly. "Are you all right?" he asked, rushing to support her. "Their biochemical emissions affected my neural pathways," she explained weakly. "Temporary effect. Worth the data collected." He carried her to the med bay, monitoring her vital signs with a mixture of scientific interest and profound concern. As he administered a detoxifying agent, she reached for his hand. "You risked yourself," he whispered. "As would you." Her eyes found his through the clear face shield. "Is this not what connection means? To assume risk for another?" In that moment, Ren understood that they were creating something without precedent, a language of their own, built on more than words, transcending the boundaries of their different species. "Yes," he said simply. "I believe it is." The storm dissipated on the fourth day, leaving behind a transformed landscape. The methane lake had swelled, consuming previously dry shoreline. Debris from the planet's sparse vegetation littered the area surrounding the station. But inside, a more significant transformation had taken place. "The consortium vessel will arrive in approximately 26 hours, Nylira announced as they surveyed the damage from the observatory dome. "They are eager to receive my research findings." Ren felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. 26 hours. That's soon. "Yes." Her voice held an unfamiliar hesitation. "My assignment was 1/4 cycle. It concludes tomorrow." They worked in silence, repairing storm damage and compiling their respective research data. The words they weren't saying hung between them like a physical presence. That evening, as they shared what might be their final meal together, Ren finally spoke the truth that had been building inside him. "I don't want you to leave," he said simply, the words emerging rough and unpolished. Nylira's skin rippled with subtle light patterns. "My superiors expect my return. The data I've collected is valuable to understanding human linguistics." "And what about the data we've collected together? About connection across species boundaries? About—" he gestured between them. "Whatever this is becoming. There is no protocol for this situation," she admitted. Her eyes shifted through colors Ren hadn't seen before: uncertainty, conflict. "Corellians value knowledge, but we also value order. Predetermined paths." Ren pushed his plate away. "I've followed a predetermined path for 3 years. Hiding from connection, from risk. Then you arrived and disrupted your solitude," she finished. "No, you showed me it wasn't solitude I needed. It was the right company." Outside the viewport, Ilara 9's 3 small moons had aligned, a rare occurrence that bathed the recovering landscape in silver light. Nylira stood and extended her hand to him. "Come. Before discussing future possibilities, I wish to experience one more night of current certainties." Their final hours together were spent creating memories neither of their species had vocabulary to properly describe. Ren memorized the patterns of light that bloomed across her blue skin at his touch. Nylira cataloged the sounds he made when words failed him. They built a private language of gesture and response, of heartbeats and shared breath. Morning arrived too quickly. As they stood at the viewport watching the approaching consortium vessel, Nylira suddenly activated the communication console. "This is Xenolinguistic Specialist Nylira to Consortium Command," she announced formally. Ren watched, confused, as she proceeded to deliver a detailed proposal for an extended research mission. A joint human-Corellian study of interspecies communication patterns, requiring her continued presence at the station for a minimum of 1 standard year. When she concluded the transmission, she turned to find Ren staring at her in disbelief. "You're staying?" "If the proposal is accepted," she clarified, "and if my presence remains welcome. But your career, your responsibilities to your people." Her luminescent eyes held his. "Knowledge expands through exploration of the unknown. What we have discovered together," she took his hand, lacing her 5 fingers through his 5. "This is unknown territory worthy of thorough investigation."